We would also proceed now, as time really is tight. We are going to proceed with question and answer session, which was supposed to be 20 minutes actually, but the committee has just contacted me that we only have 15 minutes for the questions. So could you please give me a permission to not reading or not mentioning the name of the person who asked the questions, and give me permission on combining the questions into one. For example, when you have several related questions, and I will also ask every speaker to respond to the questions in maximum 5 minutes. So I hope you give me your permission to do that, just for the time efficiency. The first question now will be for Dr. Go. Dr. Go, there is a question about what if you have students from different faiths, and actually the institution doesn't ask you to share the gospel, but you know you have to share the gospel. And another thing is, what if the parents at home have different perspectives in the formation program, especially according to this questionnaire, in values.
Okay.
Another thing, I think you already answered, Dr. Go, one question with one long question with one short answer about the balance of synchronous and asynchronous, just to make sure there is the personal interaction between the teacher and the students. So if you want to also clarify what you mean with the balance between synchronous and asynchronous, you are welcome. So there are 3 things that I think I have selected together with 2 attendants in YouTube and Zoom platforms for you, Dr. Go, to respond.
Okay,
Thank you.
with the last question about the asynchronous and synchronous, I just want to add to my answer that it is possible to communicate the presence of the teacher even asynchronously. So as long as a teacher responds to the discussion boards, that's also one way of being personable, online. Now, regarding faith and values formation, as I said earlier, uh, it really depends on your philosophy. And if your philosophy is to teach the faith and values as facts, you will get into trouble because you are insisting that you are the only one correct. But if you are proposing that the teachings of scripture, for example, or values as judgments, you are inviting the students to think for themselves and to make their own judgments. Now, with regard to faith, I would be more careful because obviously, unless it's a religion class, there's really no need to sort of be in your face about your own faith. But I think as educators, our job as Christian educators, our job is to invite and challenge our students to to make a personal judgment about their faith so that they will live their faith authentically, whatever that faith is, because you cannot impose on other people. Even if I believe, obviously, I'm a Catholic, I'm a priest, obviously I believe in my faith, I cannot impose on other people because it's it's not going to work. It just doesn't work that way. Nobody's going to accept it. But with regard to values, again, if we propose values as judgment, in other words, we have reason supporting why we feel these values are important, we're only inviting our students to make a similar judgment, and we are not imposing on them. So if the parents complain and disagree with you, you can always say, I wasn't imposing the values as facts. I was proposing them as judgments. No? So there is a way around that. I hope I answered your questions.
I hope so. Thank you, Dr. Go. Another question, because you still have time, Dr. Go, is about, is there any experience in doing service learning with marginalized communities such as disabled people in trying to build or encourage the empathy of the students?
So the question is, do I have an experience doing that?
Yes.
Yes, well, I went through a similar a program where I served for 1 month in a orthopedic hospital for the poor. No, so and I was serving those who had spinal problems the whole month. So uh, I think working with people who are disabled is really a very powerful way to sort of nurse empathy, for other people, because really you will begin to appreciate all the things we take for granted, no? Like being able to move properly, being able to be independent and take care of ourselves. All these things that the many disabled people could not do when I was doing my service learning. So yes, that's a very effective way. But online, that would be a little bit problematic, I think, no? Obviously. But you can also access stories of people who are disabled, how they felt, what happened to them, and that can also create some kind of empathy. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Go. I would like now to move to Dr. Eka, because we have questions very specific about uh, in trying to help the students in Sanata Dharma. This might be some example that the uh, person who asked this question asked for, maybe an example. How to keep your students' physical health when we have to learn from home during this global pandemic, and how a Sanata Dharma University facilitates students to learn well. So maybe you can respond to these questions, Dr. Eka.
Thank you for the question given to me. We just finished our service, not service learning, but KKN. I'm sorry. We just finished our KKN using online system. I mean,
Service learning.
Service learning, sort of service learning. Before pandemic, this program is always working in a remote area. Some students would go to a remote area, but due to pandemic, we cannot do that anymore. And therefore, we developed the so-called independent KKN, or independent service learning, because the main point is not to have a remote area situation, but the most important thing is how to cultivate compassion from our students. And therefore, they are free to do many activities based on their own context. They have they may propose any related activities, as long as through this kind of activities, they can develop their compassion to the society. Now, regarding to the, it works because we just finished the program. And regarding your question about how to make sure how to have our students maintain or keep their health using an online environment, I think it depends on the way we design our online learning. Online learning does not mean that every or all activity should be done using ICT. Online learning can be just a way of communication, and many other activities, especially physical activities, can also be introduced using online learning. So we may ask our students to do things like making a survey, doing things, doing exercise, and so on. And then they can report, our student can report to us by taking pictures or taking videos. So there are many possible things to do using an online platform. That's why the design process, the design aspect of online learning is very essential. If we don't have any pandemic problem, then in our campus, we enforce our students to be actively join some physical activities. So we provide a very good football field. We develop our auditorium. We have many places to gather, to have some physical activities, and even in our whole person education program, where every student has a chance to be accompanied by their advisor for 1 year, we integrate the program with physical exercise activities like group dynamics, outbound, and visiting some interesting places. Yes, as a Jesuit university, we have enough and sufficient facilities to support physical health, and most importantly, for me, our concern to develop good physical environment is the most appropriate response to the digital life, because one threat we have in digital life is physical health. If our young student, our student are so enjoyable in using digital platform, and there is a threat that their physical health is in danger, then we should develop the way our response is to develop our physical facilities like sport hall or football field in such a way these facilities is also very interesting to those our young students. And because we believe a good life should be the whole person life in many aspects, either physically, spiritually, and mentally. That's my answer. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Eko. Exactly, 5 minutes for both questions response. Thank you. Now, Dr. Adit, there are some questions for you too, based on the survey from the students' voices, but also maybe your analysis and further survey, if any. There are questions like this. What teachers should concern in order to sustain students' meaningful learning, retention, and motivation to learn? Is it better for teachers to allocate more time for lecturing and interactive sessions in the online class, or only short lecturing time, but expose them with materials, with reading materials, something like a flipped learning with reading materials or assignments with various due dates, those questions. And another, if you have maybe some result from the students' voices, the online platform which may be low cost. Thank you.
Okay. Okay. Regarding maybe a platform that is low cost, I think in Indonesia, especially in the Indonesian context, certain carrier like Telkomsel, I believe, has made it a free access to your university learning management system. So, but your university needs to register your IP address of your LMS server to Telkomsel, and then after it's registered, all the data access to the address will be free. It means that all the students who are accessing the LMS, in our case at Petra, we have registered our Lentera server to Telkomsel. That means that all access to Lentera, either for downloading materials to interact with in the forum section or in doing the online quiz, all the data access is free. But I think that's limited to the certain carrier, Telkomsel, and only one server can be registered to have this to enjoy this free access for the data connection. That's one. So it's not a satisfying solution, but at least it's part of the solution. And second, maybe not about this, which software is low cost or for in terms of data connection, because there are conflicting information about which video conferencing software only generates the least amount of data. Some say it's Zoom, but some say it's Google Meet, some say it's something else. So I'm not I'm not in I don't have an expertise to judge that. So, but I think the way to go is to reduce the amount of time for synchronous online interactions, meaning reduce the time for video conferencing. This solution is to help students with limited financial resources to buy the internet quota and stuff like that. Maybe that's part of the solution. And then the first question is about how to maintain students' interest in learning.
That's right.
Maybe, yeah. We as lecturers, because this is a mendadak daring or suddenly online, we don't have any prior experience. Everything is new for us. So many of us tend to just transport what we do in the physical world into the online world. Meaning, if we have 2-hour lectures on physical classes, we also do 2 hours video conferencing. Well, that's not necessarily the best thing to do. Okay, so in the early days of our mendadak daring or suddenly online, my center proposed to the university rector to adopt a policy that if you have a 2-hour physical class lecture, it doesn't mean that you have to do 2 hours of video conferencing. You can supplement that with other asynchronous activity, still online but asynchronous. Maybe ask the students to read first, give some reading assignment, give students some discussion assignment that they have to discuss first, so that they will spend time to discuss on the learning management software, for example. So those are the kind of things that you can do to sustain student interest. So it's not the whole 2 or even 3 hours of video conferencing, but you can divide it into chunks, or you can use there are many resources with millennial generation right now. They are more visually oriented students. So use visual resources, YouTube videos. There are so many interesting things that you can find in YouTube videos. The only drawback is that most of them are in English. Yeah, but if it's not a big problem, then it's a wonderful resources. Or you can also do, I mean, maybe just, I just saw like some, ice-breaking activities for Zoom or for video conferencing. So basically it's just like ice-breaking in the physical world, but this one in the online world. So maybe that's just touching on the surface, but at least those are starters that you can do.
Thank you, Dr. Aditya. Thank you for only touching the surface, because there are questions that we didn't try to respond right now in the first series, because we think and we suspect, we expect that the second series will answer some deeper and maybe practical too questions. So yes, I think thank you very much for the 3 keynote speakers for responding to as many questions that we can get in such a limited time. Thank you too for all your questions, dear participants.